The UN Population Fund, UNFPA, says fewer babies could mean an economic miracle for sub-Saharan Africa, with gains of $500 billion a year over 3 decades for the region. According to its State of the World Population Report, a total of 59 nations were poised for a demographic dividend when the working age population outnumbers the rest due to declining fertility rates. And Vox Africa is privileged to have in its London news studios the UNFPA's Executive Director, Dr. Babatunde Osotimehin. Welcome, Dr. Osotimehin.
Thank you very much.
Let's look at your agency's report. The economic miracle experienced by East Asian economies could become a reality for many of today's poorer countries. But how can they go about achieving this miracle, especially in sub-Saharan Africa?
Let me start by saying that the target is not actually to reduce the number of babies. The target is to ensure that young people today between the ages of 10 and 24 in sub-Saharan Africa have access to good education, good quality education, and I mean beyond literacy and numeracy, skills development, entrepreneurship training, good governance, and ability to access resources to do startups so that they can start small and medium enterprises. And if we do that, what you are going to get is a multiply effect on the economy such that they would be able to contribute substantially to the economy. Now, what we also must happen within that framework is that girls must go to school and stay in school. So the early marriage, the issue of girls not being allowed to go to school would have to stop. And so we have to develop the female capacity to be able to participate in this. Now, if you do that, if you allow girls to go to school and complete school and be able to be equal participant in the development enterprise, what happens is they have fewer babies because then they don't start having babies at 12, they start having babies at 22. And because they are older, they tend to choose fewer children. And so fertility declines as a consequence of it, not because that is what we need to get that 500 billion.
Yeah, but Dr. Osotimehin, there's a problem in northern Nigeria concerning early marriage and also the latest insurgency of Boko Haram trying to say Western education is sinful and selling off the abducted girls. What do you think the Nigerian government can do in this regard?
The truth of the matter is that that's a recent event, and we have to continue to advocate with northern Nigeria and indeed the Sahel. It's not just in northern Nigeria. Yes. It's something that goes across West Africa, making sure that we speak to religious leaders, community leaders, and persuade them that, you know, girls just have equal potential as boys, and they should be allowed to go to school and stay in school. And that doesn't take anything away from them. It just adds value to them so that they can participate in the development of their communities.
Yes, so this report is 20 years, it's regard a long period. You're not just looking at today, what's happening, and you're looking at the evolution.
Looking at evolution, we're saying that if we do the right investments now, if we're able to get good quality education, we're able to empower young people, including girls. And adolescent girls are the most vulnerable. We need to put them at the center of development. If we do that, what we are going to have is a massive movement of people and the economy to be able to grow in such a manner that it will be sustainable.
So the report stated that almost 2 billion today are youth, people in the world, in the whole world, and that you emphasize on the youth because they are the future, obviously, of the nations. what can you do for the government? We are speaking about Africa because we are concentrating on Africa. Can see it as your way, stating that education is primarily one of the most important thing we have to develop in our countries. What are the steps that you're suggesting to the government?
Okay, let's break it down now. Every country in Africa that I know has a population profile of 70% of the population below the age of 30, 35. So every African country is youthful. Now, what we are saying is that if you can take advantage of the energy, the creativity and innovation that young people will bring, you would actually transform the economies. But that requires investments. That requires us to do better than we're doing now. I used to be minister in a country, and I know that the investments we make in education might not be adequate. And that even when you invest, you have to have accountability around it, so that, you know, once you put the money there, you're actually getting the results that you desire. Now, it is not just about the regular school, it's also about skills development, it's about entrepreneurship training, it's about the ability for them to think outside of the box, to do things creatively, which they've not been able to do before. And I think that is the challenge we have. Now, that's the advocacy that we believe that this document is going to enable us to accomplish.
Okay, let's look at Nigeria, the most populous nation in Africa. And the report is saying something about the demographic wave, that it could treble per capita income in a generation as long as it was accompanied by the right policies and investments. So it's like has to have a balance. But as the former cabinet minister in this same country, Nigeria, what has it that the government has been doing wrong that it cannot tap into the population boom? Just like we've seen investors from South Africa coming to Nigeria and take away all these human and capital investments. And then the government is not able to replicate that.
I think government recognizes it. Government is also putting money to it. And I know that the federal government of Nigeria has done quite a bit with girls' education. I know that the government of Nigeria is also interested in the demographic dividend. I did have a conversation with President Jonathan about this in July, and I think that they are interested in making sure that this works and works well. Now, what Nigeria needs to do, which is doing, is that we actually see now that different parts of Nigeria are growing at different rates. And there's a study which we have from Harvard, which actually has shown that some parts of Nigeria might actually be just at the threshold of being able to do this, whereas some are still trying to get their act together. So it's a question of us making sure that we look at subnational systems, work with subnational systems, and drive it. So we don't talk about media Nigeria, we talk about different parts of Nigeria to be able to do it.
We just spoke about investment in education. Obviously, investment in health is also very important. We are at the moment in a crisis with Ebola, which shows that the investment in health in some countries is really poor, and that's why we've not been able to contain probably the disease as we would have been able in other countries. What can you tell us about this?
The biggest obstacle to universal care in Africa is weak health systems. Our ability to provide, or to have enough human resources for health, our ability to be able to position these human resources for health in clinics close to people, so people don't have to travel miles to get care, our ability to be able to get logistics management system to move what they need to where it is needed. So vaccination would be next door, and antenatal care will be available there, and the ability for them to pay. Those are the three key things that we need to look after. Now, yes, Ebola speaks to a weak health system. I mean, because if the health system works well, and as demonstrated in Lagos State, it just contained it.
That's what I want
As
to
demonstrated
say.
in Rivers State, just contained it.
Yeah.
That's really what the Nigerian health system just demonstrates. So we need to go forth and learn from this and use that to build the health system sufficiently to be able to deliver care.
So African countries need a coordination, because there's something we learn from the situation.
Absolutely.
That Nigeria has been able to contain it. What can Nigeria bring to Liberia, for example, or Sierra Leone?
And Senegal did the same.
Did the same.
Now, what I actually want to say is that the health systems we're talking about now for the demographic dividend actually is about reproductive health. It's about girls being given education about their bodies, about their fertility, about their ability to make choices, about their vulnerability, so that they don't get HIV, they don't get STDs, sexually transmitted infections, and they don't get pregnant. And also open them to services, so that if they need it, they can get it. Now, that is, it's part of the pillars of the demographic dividend. So it's education, girls' education, and the ability to access reproductive health services.
Well, let's look at the knock-on effect of Ebola, and you mentioned it in the report as well. Yeah, you talk about the knock-on effect on pregnant women and children. As a health expert, what do you think can be done to help out?
What we at UNFPA have tried to do is to construct and to build systems parallel to what is going on now, where we offer midwifery services to pregnant women who cannot access health. And we're working with the United Nations Volunteer Corps to identify midwives who would work in those satellite situations. And we will equip the stations so that pregnant women can go there. They can have antenatal care, they can deliver there, they can have postnatal care, and they can bring their children to be treated for common ailments like malaria. And we believe that that's a solution to that problem. Now, of course, we think that's urgent and that's important, because it will ensure that we actually don't secure, or we don't have more people dying from those causes than Ebola itself. Because, right now, we reckon that in the year, there'll be 500,000 pregnant women in those 3 countries. And they have to be cared for. Otherwise, if you have a 10% mortality, that's heavy. Or if you have a 5%, that's heavy. That's not what you want to deal with.
So UNFPA is actually investing in
We're investing in that.
Thank you.
Before we go, let's look at the report again. It noted that women in developing countries generally have more children than they desire. And the report also said that there is an unmet need for modern contraception, rather. How do we balance the two?
Today, there are more than 200 million women in the world who want modern contraception and are not getting it. Now, that's an issue of access. So you go to a country, you look at it, and there are women who would like to have family planning, but they don't have it because they can't access it. The countries don't have the clinics or the facilities to provide modern contraception. Now, so in a sense, UNFPA is working with countries in order to close the gap of unmet needs for family planning. Now, the truth of the matter, and this is true, this is the fact, is that women, when you talk to them, especially in rural Africa, they want fewer children than they do have. And they also do understand that education is what they need for their children to lift them up and to lift them out of poverty. So in a sense, those two things actually are coterminous. And if we can, even now, reach out to these women, give them family planning, and ensure that they can just have the number they think they can afford to have in terms of housing them, in terms of educating them, in terms of feeding them. We actually are on the road to that transition which we are looking for. Now, of course, there's still the need to invest in education, and the education that we're talking about, which is different from what is happening.
On the final note, let's look at we look at religion, we look at culture in rural Africa, because people believe that children come from God, so you can't stop. Especially even the Catholic Church is against the use of condoms and some other contraceptions. And then we also look at the culture, that we believe that the more children we have, the more we can have them on the farm and we get wealthier. What is the UNFPA doing about that?
All that is changing. All that is changing, because you see, there was a point at which the average African woman would have many children because she doesn't know how many will survive. But today I can tell you, we have cut under 5 mortality by more than 50%. So children are surviving. That message needs to go out. They must understand that if you have 10, you have 10. And you have to look after 10. Yeah. So don't kid yourself that, oh, you know, I can have 10 and end up with 5. No, that's not going to happen. That's one. The second is that we also know that there's nothing sacrosanct in the religious precepts, either of Islam or Christianity, that says that you cannot use contraception. Nothing. Of course, interpretations vary from place to place, but I can tell you this, that the best population policy in the world that I know, or one of the best, is in Iran.
Why is that?
Because they looked at it and said, listen, we have to do this. The religious leaders signed on to it. And we have countries like Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, Malaysia, Indonesia, that have population policies that support contraception. So I don't think that there is a myth around it. On the other side, with Christians, yeah, the slowest growing population in the world is in Italy, where the Vatican is sitting, and Brazil, which is the largest Catholic country in the world, actually has a population growth which is decreasing. So in a sense, I don't see a problem with religion. It is just a question of our ability to engage with religious leaders, to be able to tell them that, listen, you are not helping anybody by asking them to have more children when it's endangering their lives and the lives of the children they have. Many of these women cannot even look after the few they have. They can feed them, you know. So we're losing human capital because, you know, of all of these misinterpretation, in my view, of religion. I think we need to look at this very carefully. Now, let me also say something. When the HIV pandemic was big in Africa, you know, Nigeria had 0.7% prevalence. Senegal has 0.7% prevalence. What did Senegal do? Senegal called all the religious leaders in Senegal, and the president and the government sat with them and they agreed that this is something we're going to work on. Senegal never rose beyond 0.7%. Nigeria went to 6.1%. Wow. So it's possible.
It's a matter of will.
It's a matter of will, and it's a matter of engagement, and it's a matter of telling people that, you know, this is what to do. I mean, today, and when we look at it, when it comes to the issue of contraception and the issue of child rearing, there's no reason in the world why a 10-year-old girl should be married off. There's no reason, because she's a child, and she's likely to die if she gets pregnant. There's no reason why, you know, even when if she gets married at 15, there's no reason why she cannot be given contraception. No reason. Because spacing is healthy for her, for a child, and for the subsequent child. And so, in a sense, we have a lot of work to do, I accept. But we can break it down to ensure that people come on board and see the reason why this has to be so. The last word I'm going to say,
Yes.
Africa must train its adolescent girls. That is the future of Africa, so that we can have more people like you.
Dr. Babatunde Osotimehin, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yes.